recording?
Yes.
Hello, my name is Kimberly O'Connell Holt, and I'm doing a speech. These are my 6 adults. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the cameraman.
Here.
Communication differences exist. What are they? How do they affect how we understand each other? Are our brains different chemically? Is it learned behavior or genetic? Verbal communication has to do with speech and voice patterns. The different wording that we use is usually called the minimum response, which is the response to somebody else's talking, like or uh-huh. With women, it's usually positive, and they respond by saying, continue, I'm listening, or they lean in. Men, it's usually delayed, and they're very short and abrupt. They say, I agree, or I follow you, and there's no emotion to it. The different parts of the conversation that we stress with women, conversation topics are developed and expanded. Topic shifts are gradual. They finish sentences and they interrupt more. With men, topics are narrowly defined. Topic shifts are abrupt. When we express ourselves through words, women use more emotion words, feeling words. Men use more descriptive words. Women interrupting is usually a show of support, understanding, or agreement called collaboration. Men interrupting is usually a disruption or violation of the speaker's right to speak, or them showing their dominance. Women use superlatives, metaphors, and generalizations in their speech. They use pitch and inflection for emphasizing points. Men are more direct and straightforward. They disclose less personal information. Their speech is louder than women's, using loudness to emphasize their points. They interrupt more, and they make direct accusations and statements. They ask fewer questions. Communication to solve problems. Men use communication to solve problems, maintain dominance and assertiveness, and they're more abstract and less personal. Women use communication to establish and maintain relationships, responsive, supportive, and they work towards sustaining the conversation. Communication skills, in addition to being partially genetic, are also shaped by society, culture, and education. Men are better with numbers. Women are better with language and communication. For nonverbal differences, they're split into 3 categories: primary, secondary, and tertiary. Primary are hereditary characteristics like bone structure, how they walk, body shape relating to posture. Secondary are modeling or observations, like when they impersonate things or how they do gesturing. And tertiary are popular explanations of reinforcement of behavior. They're also learned. When we're young, differences stem from influences in childhood, referring to touch, empathy, and emotions. Emotions with women, we have a heavy emotional investment in conversation. We learn to read relationship sensitivity, and men are trained to misinterpret meaning and to stress sensitivity. Physical reactions, which are verbal aggressiveness, women see it as personally directive and usually negative. Men see it as a way to help conversation flow. Voice tone. Men usually have a lower tone, which comes across as stronger, tougher. Women have higher, which usually means dainty or fragile. With touch, men are more likely to initiate the touch, but women are more likely to do more of it over the period of time. Eye contact. Women make more eye contact generally over the full conversation. They also maintain gaze more when they're listening than when they're talking, meaning they are being supportive and not trying to dominate the conversation. When there's competitiveness, they make more commands. There's limited emotional content. The quantity of speech is limited, the use of slang or swearing, and it's a solution-oriented conversation, which is most of the time what men do. Relational are ask more questions, discuss feelings, it's a higher quantity of speech, the speech is polite, it includes more detail, and it's a relationship-oriented conversation, which is what women do. Voice tone. Women unintentionally deliver speeches with higher intonation than men. The higher intonation is meant to convey emotions like excitement, which men are taught to socially be more reserved with. Women use more fluid movement with gestures. Men use more straight, sharp movements. With posture, women are usually sitting with the arms close to their bodies, crossing their legs, and they usually face each other when they sit next to each other and are talking. They also stand closer together when they're talking. With men, there's an open, wider posture. Their arms are away from their bodies, and their legs are usually apart. When they're sitting and having a conversation, they sit side by side, not face to face. They stand more distant apart. With visual dominance, which is the time spent making eye contact while talking versus time spent making eye contact while listening, men do more of that than women. Body language and interpretation. Advice giving and problem sharing. Men interpret problems as requests for solutions. They act as experts, offer advice rather than sympathize or share. Women reassure one another, they discuss and share problems, and they listen mutually without trying to find a solution. With bonding, women bond through conversation, sharing info, and just overall talking. Men bond through participation of a shared activity. When two women get together, their activity usually is stemmed around talking beforehand or meeting somewhere where they can talk, and it's usually centered around conversation. With men, it's usually go out to the garage, work on a project. They don't want to talk, they don't want to discuss. Women are more emotional, agreeable, extroverted, conscientious. They also read emotion reactions better regardless of verbal or visual clues, which men don't. Women display greater sadness and greater anxiety. Men are more likely to show increasing blood pressure and a tendency towards alcohol craving. Women are more inclined to experience disgust as stimuli intended to elicit an emotional reaction. Men are more likely to emerge as leaders to dominate groups by talking more or interrupting more and wanting to direct. Women are more likely to be expressive, supportive, facilitate, and cooperative. They convey their ideas and feelings better. Women get closer, use more body language, listen more, use more eye contact, and touch more. Men are more action-oriented. The four differences in communications are problem solving, communications of feelings, needs, and desires, understanding and relating to a situation, and approach to a situation. And the difference between male and female are usually referred to as debate versus relate, or report versus report, or competitive versus cooperative. Women mix multiple intelligences together to problem solve. Men tend to focus more on one intelligence at a time. There is also a major difference in brain. The corpus callosum, which is the center point in between the two hemispheres that facilitates the The idea is to go back and forth from right hemisphere to left hemisphere is a lot thicker for women than it is for men. So their right brain and their left brain talk a lot better. One side is for logic, the other side is for emotion. When your logic side is working and your emotion side is talking, you're better able to understand conversations, which is what women do. Men usually use one side or the other side. They have a harder time switching back and forth and having those two sides talk to each other. So I have showed many differences that are real, including physical differences, emotional differences, way we interpret, and it all adds to miscommunication. We can't all assume that all persons of the same sex will respond to the same way, but the patterns do exist in the way we express, interpret, and relate to situations. And now I'll pan the audience again. And everybody is here.
Camera guy +1.
Cheated.